In early 2026, rhetoric between Washington and Tehran crossed a critical threshold, escalating rapidly into active preparations for a full-scale war. The United States laid out plans for massive, imminent military strikes, specifically targeting Iranian infrastructure. This chart shows the immediate market reaction, far beyond a localized dispute. A war in this specific region meant an immediate disruption to the global energy supply, threatening the core engine of the world's economy. Hours before those strikes were expected to launch, diplomatic backchannels produced a sudden halt. Pakistan stepped in, mediating an 11th-hour pause in the hostilities. The international response was swift. Stock markets immediately rallied, while energy prices cooled off. But that relief is entirely conditional. The agreement signed by both nations contains absolutely no mechanisms for long-term peace. It is strictly a temporary ceasefire. Both militaries agreed to a window of roughly 2 weeks to step back from the brink. The underlying disputes that triggered the escalation are completely untouched. The international community hasn't solved the crisis. They have simply delayed a potential war by exactly 336 hours. This map highlights the Strait of Hormuz between the Arabian Peninsula and Iran. This narrow corridor handles 20% of the world's oil flow. Control over this choke point was the primary trigger for the military buildup. As their primary concession to secure the ceasefire, Iran agreed to reopen the strait and guarantee safe passage for these shipping vessels. In exchange, the United States officially halted all planned kinetic operations against Iranian soil. Other regional players, specifically Israel, also agreed to freeze their active operations during this tight window. By controlling a single, vital maritime artery, a nation gains immense asymmetric leverage. Threatening that route forces global superpowers to the negotiating table, regardless of their military advantage. Beneath the maritime dispute lies a deeper, systemic conflict, the escalating tensions over Iran's nuclear program. The United States approaches the table with strict requirements. They want guaranteed, uninterrupted oil flow, validation that their threat of force was effective, and hard limits placed on Iranian nuclear capabilities. These conditions clash directly with Tehran's non-negotiable positions. Iran demands to maintain its nuclear progress and insists on complete relief from crushing economic sanctions. Furthermore, Iranian negotiators are pressing for a permanent end to the threat of U.S. strikes, along with financial compensation for damages previously incurred. Both sides view their core conditions as absolute matters of national survival. Reconciling these demands requires compressing years of diplomacy into a single 14-day window. Publicly, international bodies like the European Union have welcomed the pause as a good first step, but the official narrative obscures a much more dangerous reality. Full trust between the two nations sits at absolute zero. Beneath the veneer of a ceasefire, indirect military actions and regional proxy skirmishes are still quietly simmering on the ground. A signed document in a capital city doesn't instantly defuse a missile battery in the field. Local commanders are still tracking targets while their leaders talk peace. The attempt to secure a permanent resolution will likely happen here, in Islamabad, where high-stakes negotiations are set to take place. Any successful deal rests on 3 massive compromises: establishing limits on nuclear enrichment, providing tangible sanctions relief, and securing mutual security guarantees. The current reality is stark. The ceasefire holding the region together is legitimate, but extremely fragile and strictly temporary. If these talks fail to produce a compromise, this 2-week pause evaporates, and both nations will be thrust immediately back into the crosshairs of a major conflict. The world is now operating inside a 14-day countdown. When that timer hits 0, the region either enters a new diplomatic framework or returns to the brink of full-scale war.